One point I want to make before it escapes me. What does intended in advance mean? So I think that that's a bit of it is almost of a bit of a misnomer because yes, I remember when I first started teaching this that people thought that we're supposed to wake up in the morning and like write down the points of attention that we'll have throughout the entire day and that we don't really deviate from that. I would say you could do that. I mean, I don't see any real violation of principle other than maybe being a little too stringent. If you're like, you won't deviate from that, I think that might be a little bit of a box that we put ourselves into. So I don't think that is probably the best thing to do. But you can definitely intend them as soon as you wake up, but you can intend them in the situation as well because time is a fickle thing. So in advance just means that you haven't arrived there as a form of just habit, right? That there is some volition involved, that there's choice. So Donna, maybe you're walking along and something catches your eye that would normally be a point of attention for you. And it's kind of a reminder. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay. Did you intend that in the morning? No. But from that point forward, you may choose to pay attention to it. That has volition, that has choice. And I would still consider that with the quality of intended in advance. So there's some times where points of attention will present themselves. You couldn't have intended that in advance because it presented itself later in the day. But to
Like Shana is pointing out about pace. She
exactly.
might find herself being caught up by default in the pace of the city pace, and she can still choose it,
Mhm.
but um, or she can alter it, or she can choose something else to focus on to be in that pace deliberately. But that's one that arises in the moment.
In
Yeah.
the moment. And sometimes it arises like right before, like as you're about to step outside. Sometimes it arises when you realize that you're like uh, a football field length away from Ernest because he's not walking that pace. And then Shayna looks behind and she's like, oh shit, okay, let me. So there's all kinds of ways that this can be presented to you. And then from that point forward, and then there's also the OG classics, right? So these are the ones that were more, I use inclusive vision all day, every day. That's my thing. Is it a habit? No. I don't just wake up and automatically go to it. I have to choose. I have to check in. I have to place my attention there. Is it easier than it was 5 years ago to maintain inclusive vision? Yes, of course, it's easier. It is not automatic. And if it became automatic, that's okay. It became a habit. That's what happens sometimes. I'm probably going to switch it up a little bit. I'm probably going to make some minor altercations so that it has less of the habit quality and more of the intentional volition of will quality. And that's really what we're looking for with intended in advance. Good reminders. Yeah. External. So shadows and reflections. I think those are really good ones for, they're almost like portals. They feel like gateways to other ways of looking at the world. And that's the way that I learned them. That's what it was being intended as, kind of an opening, looking at the world from other than the usual perspective, right? So is looking at shadows and reflections going to make you smarter or make you better or, inherently of themselves? No, probably not. But if somebody's sneaking up behind you and you're aware of the reflections, who knows? It could save your life. You never know.
I have one to add there.
Okay.
I like to notice that the changing light of the day in general and how the morning colors are different than the afternoon colors that are different than the sun dusk colors
Mhm.
and even as evening gets darker, degrees of darkness. When you first shut off the light, you're like, this room is really dark. I love a dark room. But then as your eyes adjust, you can see the street lights coming in through the blinds, and I'm aware of the changing light and the colors associated with it, how different colors pop. And there's something about the quality of the time of day where the sun is in the sky that focusing in on brings me um, is a good thing for my practice, and I enjoy it.
Thank you. Those are good ones. Excellent.
The light and the dark and the half light. That's a famous part of a poem. I think it's Yeats, the light and the dark and the half light. And that just reminded me of it when Donna was speaking there.
Mhm. And then I think the more you do that, the more you start to notice the subtleties, the transitions, that it's not just instantly dark to half light, right? It moves, it's changing, it's flowing. Yet I think that playing with light will be dominant for external, especially because we're eye and sight dominant. And it's just there's something to it, right? It contains
There's a feeling.
qualities.
There's a feeling
There's a
associated
feeling.
with each of those changes, so it's both external and internal for me.
Okay, so breath. I like breath. I sometimes like to mix imagination with breath. So to go along with the diaphragmatic breathing, I don't imagine a person is doing it because that's weird, but especially like a specific person. But sometimes I imagine that like there's a touch, like somebody is touching my ribs, like around 9 to 11th, rib behind me. And I breathe into their hands. This was an exercise that Roger did with me when we were doing his Traeger approach, and he put his hands where my diaphragm is in the back on my back, and he said, he's like, I just breathe into my hands. We know that's not a real thing. Like you can't breathe into someone's hands, but with your imagination, you put attention there, and now you're feeling the touch and the hands expand. So I do that a lot, especially when I haven't been with my breath, like maybe something was happening and for some reason the degree of attention shifted to something else, and then I come back and then I realize, where is my breath located right now? Oh, okay, well, let's do this imagination technique and kind of bring it back down. Chicago has a lot of air pollutants with wildfires from Canada and things like that. So there's certain days where that type of technique is super important for me because I'm out and about, and I do have a little sensitivity to pollutants like that since I had COVID in 2020. Things like that just don't jive with me anymore. Not that they should, right? Like pollutants in your lungs, not ideal, but yeah, so different types of breathing techniques often involve some of these other directions, such as imagination, which is great. Like this isn't stagnant. There's no one way. One of the things I tell people is that I'll present my practice to you. Like I'll tell you what I do. But if for any reason you think that's what you should do exactly, I think we have error. I have my mind, I have my preferences. Donna has her mind, she has her preferences. Just as long as we're hitting the principles, that's what matters. Is this attention deliberate? Is this attention being placed rather than just arriving on its own happenstancely? And if it arrives on its own happenstancely, fine. Take take possession of it again. It happens.
In the beginning of this practice in the early years, I must admit I wanted to know exactly what you were doing, Ernest,
I get it. Yeah.
so that I could follow that and see if it worked for me. But
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of a lack of trust in your own intuition and your own ability to know yourself and find out how finding out how I operated over those years has given me the ability to just do what comes naturally for me, and some of those are really my strengths now, and the thought of following somebody else religiously now just seems really weird. I
Really
think
weird. Yeah.
you really evolve if you practice long enough with this to appreciate your own tricks of attention, your own sight, hearing, taste,
Yes.
rather than you know, follow somebody else, although they're all very good pointers in the beginning because they
Hmm.
can help you learn
Hmm.
your own things.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, yes, I suppose it's like any technique that you want to learn. If you go to a class on yoga, you're going to do the poses, and then you're going to adapt it with your own practice over
Yes.
the hours that you do it. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
go
is
ahead.
a really good point, and I needed something. You had to tell me what to do, and then I'll try this. Tell me what to do, and I'll try this. Okay, you've chosen the color blue today. I don't really love blue. I'm going to pick yellow. That's as far as a variation I could have gotten in the beginning. I needed to, experience. You've said this from the beginning, is that uh, the only thing that teaches you is the experience of it. So you have to start somewhere. And so the four directions is a great place to start. Otherwise, it kind of just gets wishy-washy and drifts away. And then I find myself in default again. I just had to, in the beginning, just remind myself to just redirect, remembering, and not even being mad about forgetting. That was like a big obstacle to get over, was just, oh God, I just reminded myself 2 minutes ago and already I've forgotten. Like, who cares? That's like Ida was talking about the judgment. Every remember is a win. So if I remembered, then that was one time more than I did yesterday. So, I had to let go of that. But that's a lot of what comes up, is your judgment about everything comes up as you're practicing, because you have to overcome the judgment to even practice. And so that's a whole stage of experiential learning in and of itself. Still is.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that sometimes our techniques can really be similar to another person. That's fine. Like there could be individual techniques that we're just like, oh, okay, that's my jam too. Like I'll do that. And that's fine. Yeah.